Congressman Ro Khanna, thank you for taking the time to slum it on the little program here. I appreciate it.
You're not little. You're a very important voice, and especially a voice for standing up for people's rights at a very important time.
Well, it's no surprise the direction we're going to go, but I do want to start off by just kind of making a statement here about that I appreciate you. I know your style may be a little different than mine. I'm a little bit more bombastic and more aggressive, and you... For me, for my taste, you're a little too eager to kind of signal to Republicans that you're willing to reach across the aisle and work. And I think it's kind of offering the benefit of the doubt to a group of people that I don't believe deserve the benefit of the doubt anymore. But having said that, I do believe you have a servant leadership heart for serving the people, for making the lives of oppressed groups and just generally Americans better. And we need more of that in these times.
Well, I appreciate that. I probably plead guilty to, I grew up in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, and on my street there were Democrats and Republicans, kids who I played Little League with, kids who I played street hockey with, and I always have had that in me that we should be able to find common ground in this country. But you're right that the current group of people in Congress and some of the cruelty we've seen. That's the part that really where I draw the line. It's the gratuitous cruelty, right? I mean, yesterday someone was doing a petition to raise money over deporting Ilhan Omar, right? I mean, that's just crossing the line ugliness. And how do we take that on is a huge challenge. It certainly needs people like you who are going to be out there calling it out. I also think it needs folks saying we still are a decent, kind country that's going to triumph over this cruelty.
I agree. I agree. I think that the days have passed of the old times, my good friend across the aisle, this feigning some kind of a collegiality or friendship. I think those days are long gone when we have the richest man in the world appointed by Donald Trump throwing up Nazi salutes at the inauguration events. I mean, we are in different times, and we're dealing with a different Republican Party than we had 40 years ago. On the point of cruelty, though, I did just run across an article that featured you in The Advocate. And another thing before I really start grilling you here is I want to thank you on behalf of my audience. Look, I have a tiny corner of the internet, just about 1 million subscribers here on YouTube, and I get communicated with...
That's a big following. Don't undersell yourself.
Well, it's fake humility, Congressman.
False modesty. False modesty does not become.
Yeah, I'm just I'm very honest about my foibles. So, in this article, I want to quote you because I really want to kind of establish your progressive bona fides. And in an era where trans people are under attack by Republicans, certainly, and mainstream kind of general attitudes about an absolutely endangered, and I don't mean that from a sense of like an endangered animal, but a group that is in danger themselves, high suicide rates. It's good to see. I want to read this quote from you, where you say, as a party, as the Democrats, we cannot abandon the trans community. These attempts to erase and erode the rights of transgender individuals is both immoral, and I like to hear you say that, and illegal. I firmly believe that the American people do not tolerate cruelty and that these attempts by Trump will ultimately fail. That said, our community has to make sure that we provide a full-throated defense of trans rights. So thank you for coming to the aid of a group that too oftentimes is left in the lurch, voiceless and powerless. And it's good to see people within the halls of power actually advocating for them. So I want to say that.
You don't have to thank me for standing up for the basic dignity and equality of all Americans. And I am deeply offended by Democrats who think that the way forward in our party is to just stop talking about trans rights, or to throw the trans community under the bus, or to throw the immigrant community under the bus, or to say that we're no longer going to talk about the challenges of race in America. The point of politics is to fight for an America that is more just, that every person has equal rights. And if we abandon that, we're abandoning the soul of the Democratic Party. I will fight tooth and nail against anyone who wants to do that on my side.
Good. Unfortunately, we do live in a time where common decency is oftentimes uncommon. So, like you said, you don't need thanks, but I feel it's necessary.
No, I don't. But look, I was a David Rubin, and who's a very conservative podcaster yesterday's, and I went to his podcast and I said, I put it in words that he should appreciate it. I said, why are you infringing on the freedom of Americans? Why can't every American live the life that they want for the pursuit of their happiness? And I think not only do we need to stand up for the trans community and our rights, we need to be going on conservative podcasts and not backing down and making the argument, because fundamentally it's an argument for human freedom and the right to pursue happiness in whatever way we see fit, which is the very purpose of the Declaration of Independence.
Again, just a difference of approach. I wouldn't be going on the beneficiary of Russian propaganda money, but hey, if you really believe you can change hearts and minds by doing so, then I guess more power to you. But
we only need to change 1.5%, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. You mean the massive mandate from the people of 1.5% of the popular vote extra. So let me do say this. Look, I do have my little slice of the internet here, and I give my voicemail line and my email every show. I engage with people on social media. I'm in the comments. I understand the trepidation, the nervousness, the fear that is palpable in the American people right now, and especially in my audience, people who are conservative or who are a little older, but I would say mostly I keep saying conservative. You got Dave Rubin on my brain. You really threw me off. Progressives, people who are concerned about the future of our country, for both for themselves, but also their posterity's sake. And in the absence of action from Democrats and leadership, it's only adding to that nervousness. I want to bring to your attention an article that I'm sure is already on your radar. And this is this exclusive reporting from Axios that has all kinds of quotes from Democrats who are squirming and seem weak-kneed about any criticism that is coming their way about inaction in the face of a fascistic takeover of our country, of an unconstitutional power grab, of someone in Donald Trump who has already signaled in December of 2023 that he has every right to, let me get the quote right, we don't want to misquote the president, to every right to terminate all rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution of the United States. They're ignoring the Article 3, Section 2 outlining of power within the judiciary. I don't think we are looking in the distance at a constitutional crisis. I think we are currently mired in a constitutional crisis, and people are nervous about that. So my couple of questions before this filibuster here is, where are you? What would you say to Democrats in leadership and just your general run-of-the-mill colleagues who are members of Congress, both in the Senate and the House, about where we go from here to battle Donald Trump, not as citizens, but as elected leaders in the Democratic Party, to identify and actually use the leverage within your power as a co-equal branch to fight back against Donald Trump?
We need to be making the fight of our lives. This is not the time for cooperation or giving them our votes. Not a single Democrat should vote for increasing the debt ceiling or for funding Donald Trump's budget that's going to hurt ordinary Americans unless we get an ironclad guarantee that every dollar Congress is appropriated and authorized will be spent, that we're not going to have Doge staffers rummaging around the Treasury Department to stop payments or get our sensitive financial information. I have been very clear, as have many of my colleagues, progressive colleagues, that this is not a time for capitulation or collaboration with a Republican Party that is going along with the unconstitutional efforts of Trump.
So You're a Yale law graduate. You're a trained.
I try not to say that much in politics. I try to talk more about my Bucks County days and public school days.
Well,
but yes, I did go there.
I think it matters for the fact that I want to ask a legal question. You're a member of Congress. You're an Ivy League educated officer of the court.
Although the vice president went to Yale, and he apparently believes that we don't have to obey federal judges.
Right.
So I'm not sure what that says about a Yale education these days.
Well, I'm still holding out hope. So, what would be the plan? Donald Trump is now ignoring not suggestions from federal courts. He's ignoring orders from federal courts. If this goes further and the administration and Donald Trump is held in contempt of court, and then they ignore those contempt orders, what can we do? Not ordinary citizens, but people like you who actually have power and influence within the government. What can be done?
Well, first of all, he needs our votes, right? I mean, we know what's the one thing that makes Donald Trump fold? It's not judges' orders. It's not criticism. It's the stock market going down. As soon as he put those tariffs, the markets went down 500 points. He folded to Prime Minister Trudeau and President Sheinbaum. And so he needs Democratic votes on this debt ceiling and funding of government, because Chip Roy is never going to vote for it. And what we ought to do very clearly is not go hand in hand outside federal agencies that aren't letting us in. That looks weak. What we should say is, if you want Donald Trump to have a successful presidency and not be blamed for economic failures, you better make sure that you are spending what Congress appropriates, or you're not going to get Democratic acquiescence with your unconstitutional plans. And I think we can get Trump to fold. What I'd like to see is for Senator Schumer and our leader, Hakeem Jeffries, to clearly put out that plan for people who are asking, what are we going to do?
Since you brought up Leader Jeffries, it seems from this Axios article that he is one of the people who is, quote unquote, very frustrated at the groups like Move On and Indivisible for ginning up activism and an uprising within Democratic voters to hold Democrats accountable, but also Republicans. You kind of did the politician thing where you didn't fully answer the question, which is, what do we do when Donald Trump fully plunges us into a constitutional crisis, ignoring contempt orders that are sure to come if they continue to ignore court orders? What can we do outside of some kind of threat of leverage from not withholding votes? Are we fully reliant right now upon the judiciary to use their co-equal branch of government power to hold Donald Trump accountable? Is that where we are? That Democrats are so leverageless that we have to rely upon the courts?
Well, I don't think so. I'll answer your question directly, because if Donald Trump doesn't make certain concessions, he's going to see the markets crash, and I don't think Donald Trump wants that. Now, let's say he says, no, I'm going to pay the debt, even though there is a debt ceiling. I'm just going to defy Congress, even if we don't have the votes. Then it goes to the Supreme Court. And then I guess the question is, would he listen to what the Supreme Court says, which is it's Congress's power? And you're saying, what happens if he defies the Supreme Court? Then you have a real constitutional crisis. If he defies the Supreme Court, in my view, that would be grounds for impeachment. Whether we would get 3 Republicans in the House to stand up for the Supreme Court and Congress and the rule of law in this land is an open question. But let's hope it doesn't get there, where we have a president defying blatantly a Supreme Court that's a conservative Supreme Court. For the sake of this country, hope we don't get to that point.
Thank you. I mean, it's good. I am not heartened by the prospect. Here's what I'm hoping for. I am kind of holding out hope. I know it's an outside chance that some of these special elections are going to go our way, and that maybe we can get either a more slim majority than it already is, or that we can flip it. And then if not that, then we're looking at the midterms. And I'm hoping, this is why I'm very appreciative of you, is you're coming on independent media. You're obviously out there in corporate media with the CNN interviews and, the massive platform of Dave Rubin. But it is, I'm just giving you shit. it is important to reach out to this element of media because I get more viewers, oftentimes, yesterday especially, more than CNN prime time.
Wow, how many viewers on average do you sometimes get?
2 million. I had one video that was about 850,000.
Yeah, that's like 5 times what CNN gets sometimes. I mean, CNN, I was on CNN yesterday during the daytime, but probably got 200,000 views, right? Yeah. So you're getting 5 times that amount. And this was a mistake the Democrats have made in the campaign in 2024. Everyone says Joe Rogan, Joe Rogan. The problem isn't that we didn't go on Joe Rogan. We should have gone on Joe Rogan. The problem is that we weren't doing enough outlets like yours and Pac-Man's and so many independent voices who have strong followings, who people trust, and we've got to get out there. I mean, it's absurd to me that our party hasn't done that.
Thank you, and again, thank you for appearing. I'll leave you with this. I'll ask you one more question, and that is, if you had a magic wand and you were able to convince Americans of whatever, what's the most important thing right now going forward for average everyday voters? Where should they expend their energy relative to resistance and relative to trying to convince their representatives, whether it be Republican or Democrat, to make some changes?
Well, look, I think talking to most Republicans right now is a waste of time. I mean, they are basically a junior partner of Donald Trump. It's sad, but that's the reality. So what can people do effectively? If they're in a moderate district where a Republican is in a tough seat, fine, reach out and make it clear that this is a decisive issue if they're going to stand up to the unconstitutionality of Donald Trump. But I think what people can do is to tell their stories. Why do they need funding for cancer research? What does that mean to their families? Why do they need funding for decent public schools in working class neighborhoods? What does that actual funding of Department of Education mean? Why do they need funding for an IEP program for their kid who has special needs? What do these cuts mean to ordinary Americans? We don't need politicians like me railing outside these federal agencies. It's fine. We need ordinary people telling their stories. And then they need to contact their member of Congress and say, do not go along with any of the Republican budgets until you get an ironclad commitment that those fundings are not going to be cut unconstitutionally. And if you do that, you're betraying the Democratic Party and the people who elected you. And that is going to give the Democratic caucus the spine to make this fight in March and April. This is not a time for compromise when you have the other side engaged in unconstitutional actions. And you're hearing this from someone who's usually more mild-mannered, more saying, let's work together. But this is not one of those moments.
Well, it's good to hear you come around to my way. My job is done here, sir.
On this issue, you're right.
Thank you for coming out. Look, I appreciate you facing the tough, but I think fair and also necessary questions. It's good to hear that you are, I'm not going to say you're equivocating, but there does seem to be a shift that maybe this process of benefit of the doubt for Republicans is, they've done enough damage now. We know the character of the party and the people, and we will not abide white supremacy. We will not abide bigotry and hatred and the denigration of people for their immutable characteristics. And look, shit, man, I'm appreciative of you. All of the heat that you've gotten for doing the trying to work and trying to understand Doge and all that, what I would consider kind of a futile effort. I think you did it in good faith. So,
well, I appreciate it. I appreciate your voice. My grandfather spent 4 years in jail alongside Gandhi. So my belief in the redemption of human beings is a deep one. And that was my belief of sort of the decency and kindness of the American people. But we're in a moment where those aren't the people. It's not ordinary Americans who are in charge. And you can respect people who may have voted for Donald Trump and still believe that the people he has put around him are betraying them, and that we need a spine to stand up to that.
Well, thanks for coming on, and get back to work.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.